Welcome to today's Learn English Through story. In this video, you'll hear the powerful redemption story of a failing student named Yadav, his struggles, his mistakes, and how one old letter changed his life forever. Listen carefully, note down new words, and by the end, you'll not only improve your English, but also take away a lesson that can inspire your own journey. Yadav sat slouched at the back of the classroom, his pen tapping nervously against the desk, his eyes drifting toward the window where the sun spilled over the playground. His classmates scribbled furiously, their pens racing across the answer sheets as if they had been preparing for this moment their entire lives. Yadav, on the other hand, stared at the blank page before him. The words wouldn't come. Numbers mocked him, sentences blurred, and the ticking clock above the blackboard felt like a hammer pounding against his skull. By the time the bell rang, his paper was half empty, a battlefield of erased lines and messy scribbles. The teacher collected the answer sheets, and Yadav avoided her eyes. He didn't need to see her expression. He already knew what it would be. Disappointment, frustration, the same look adults always gave him. When the results came a week later, the red ink across the top of his paper screamed louder than any words. Fail. It wasn't the first time. In fact, it was becoming a pattern. Each exam returned with the same crushing verdict. His friends moved ahead. Better grades, brighter futures, parents who smiled proudly at report cards. Yadav's home, however, was a different story. His father, a factory worker, would slam the results on the table and shout, "What will you become in life if you can't even pass in school? Do you want to end up like me, breaking my back for scraps?" His mother stayed quiet, her eyes heavy with silent worry. Every word of criticism carved into Yadav's chest like a knife. He wasn't lazy. He tried. At least he thought he did. But the harder he studied, the more the words on the page tangled into an incomprehensible mess. He hated himself for it. He hated how easy it seemed for others. He hated that no matter how hard he tried, he always ended up the same, a failure. Soon, his teachers stopped expecting much from him. Friends distanced themselves. Even his relatives whispered behind his back, comparing him to his cousins who excelled. That boy Yadav. He'll never make it. One evening, after another heated fight with his father, Yadav stormed into his small bedroom and slammed the door shut. He threw himself on the bed, tears burning in his eyes. He opened his old school bag to look for a notebook, but instead his hand brushed against an envelope, crumpled and yellowed with age. Curious, he pulled it out. It was a letter, dated 3 years ago, written in neat handwriting he instantly recognized. It was from his primary school teacher, Mrs. Sharma. With trembling fingers, Yadav unfolded the paper. "Dear Yadav, I know you struggle with your studies sometimes, but I want you to remember something very important. You are meant for greatness. I have seen the spark in you. Your questions, your imagination, your kindness to others. Do not let marks define you. The world needs people like you. One day you will surprise even yourself. With faith in you, Mrs. Sharma." Yadav stared at the words until his vision blurred. He had forgotten all about this letter. At the time, he hadn't believed her. Greatness? Him? The boy who couldn't even pass math? But now, reading it when his world was falling apart, Something inside him cracked open. Meant for greatness, he whispered to himself. The words clung to him like a lifeline. For the first time in months, he felt something other than despair. A flicker of hope, fragile but alive. But hope was not enough. The next morning, Yadav sat at his desk, determined to change. He made a schedule, vowed to study harder, to finally prove himself. But reality was cruel. When he opened his math book, the same wall rose before him. Equations danced like demons. Words slipped away before he could grasp them. His chest tightened, frustration boiling into anger. He threw the book across the room. "I can't do this," he screamed. But the letter still sat on his desk, staring back at him. "You are meant for greatness." He picked it up again, holding it like a shield. Maybe greatness didn't mean scoring perfect marks. Maybe it meant something else. But what? Days turned into weeks. Yadav's grades didn't magically improve. He still stumbled, still failed. Yet something was different. Instead of giving up completely, he kept returning to the letter. Each time he read it, he forced himself to try again. Slowly, he began to notice small changes. He wasn't the best student in class, but he started asking questions, even if they sounded stupid. He stayed back after school, asking his science teacher to explain experiments. He borrowed storybooks from the library to improve his English. His classmates laughed at first. "Why bother? You'll never catch up." But Yadav ignored them. The nights were the hardest. He would sit at his desk until midnight, fighting sleep, pushing through pages that seemed to mock him. His body ached. His mind screamed at him to stop. Sometimes he thought of quitting again, but then he would touch the letter under his pillow and whisper, "I can't give up. Not yet." Still, the world didn't suddenly reward him. He faced ridicule, mockery, even betrayal. His best friend stopped hanging out with him, calling him boring for spending evenings with books instead of cricket. His father, seeing little improvement in his marks, accused him of pretending to study. "You'll never change," his father spat one night. "You're just wasting your time." The words stung worse than failure. But instead of breaking, Yadav clenched his fists. For the first time, anger turned into determination. "I will prove you wrong," he muttered under his breath. That was when Yadav's journey shifted. He stopped measuring himself against others. Instead, he set his own goals, small, almost invisible ones. Memorize 10 new words a day. Solve 5 math problems without help. Read 1 chapter of science, even if it took hours. Each time he achieved a goal, no matter how small, he felt stronger. His failures didn't vanish, but now they became steps rather than walls. Months passed, his teachers began to notice. Mrs. Banerjee, his English teacher, praised him for his improved vocabulary. His math teacher raised an eyebrow when he solved a problem correctly on the board. But the real test came during the annual science fair. Yadav's class was asked to prepare projects. Most students dismissed him, assuming he would fail as usual. But Yadav had been secretly working for weeks, researching simple experiments using household materials. On the day of the fair, he stood nervously beside his project, a water filter made from sand, gravel, and charcoal. When the judges came by, Yadav explained, his voice shaking at first but growing stronger as he described the process. The judges listened, nodding. One of them even smiled. By the end of the day, Yadav's project won second place. It wasn't first, but to him it was everything. For the first time in years, he felt seen, not as a failure, but as someone capable. He rushed home with the certificate in his hand. His father looked at it, silent for a long time. Then, for the first time, his stern face softened. "You did this?" Yadav nodded. His father didn't say much, but his eyes glistened. That silent acknowledgement was worth more than any applause. From then on, Yadav didn't stop. He kept building, creating, experimenting. His marks still weren't perfect, but his confidence grew. He realized greatness wasn't about topping exams. It was about refusing to give up, about finding his own path. Years later, when Yadav stood in front of a crowd at a local innovation fair, presenting his low-cost device for clean drinking water, he caught sight of Mrs. Sharma in the audience. She smiled at him, her eyes shining with pride. After the event, she came up to him and whispered, "I told you, Yadav, you are meant for greatness." Tears welled up in his eyes as he held the old letter, still folded in his wallet. This time, he believed it. Because the boy who once thought he was nothing had discovered the truth. Greatness isn't about never falling. It's about rising every time you do. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more English learning stories. And remember, practice makes progress. Write in the comments, what is the new English word you learned today? Let's learn together.